Welcome to 3 Minutes With, where we meet researchers and their precision agriculture projects. Today we have Patrick Philippi from the University of Sydney.
So today we're talking about mapping the depth to soil constraints and how potentially it's a useful tool for understanding yield variability. So this research was funded by the University of Sydney and CRDC as well. So many researchers work on digital soil mapping using public data sets. So a lot of them use regional soil databases or national soil databases, and then they combine it with other spatial data layers such as satellite imagery or digital elevation models. So a good example of this is the Soil and Landscape Grid of Australia, which is available across the whole country. But the problem is that very few farmers use these digital soil mapping products to inform decisions. And to be honest, very few of them even know that these kind of products exist. So the main reasons for this is that things like SLGA don't focus on soil properties that are highly related to yield. They often make maps of too many depth increments. For example, they'll do 0 to 5, 5 to 15, 15 to 30, 30 to 60. It's kind of hard to know which layers to focus on to make a management decision from. But I suppose the big problem is that they are too inaccurate and there's really little trust that the predictions are accurate. So how do we actually improve this for Precision Ag? So what farmers need is agronomically important soil properties. So you're going to focus on things like soil constraints, for example, sodicity or acidity. And rather than making maps at many depth increments, create a map of the depth to soil constraints. So basically one map in 3D. But how do we actually improve the accuracy of predictions? So a good way is basically grabbing the regional soil databases, but then adding in grower data to those soil databases. So the case study we focused on was in the Namoi catchment. So we focused on soil sodicity. So we basically got a large regional soil database of the area. So it's in northern New South Wales, at about 1,800 sites or 5,600 soil samples, various depths to 1 metre. And then within that, we focused on the University of Sydney farm Lara, which is a cropping farm within the catchment in the northern area. And basically, we've got 30 sites there, 150 samples of various depths to 1 metre. The question we always ask in Precision Ag is, what is the value of neighbouring data? We always talk about, is there value in combining data from our neighbours? And basically, one question we also wanted to ask was, how does the quality of the predictions change if we just use regional data, if we use regional data with this neighbouring data, and then if we combine the regional and neighbouring soil samples with some soil samples that we've also collected on farms. So you can see an image of Lara here, a Google Earth image. We've got the yellow samples, which are the regional data points. We've got the neighbouring points in blue. We've got the samples that we've actually collected in red. So we wanted to look at the quality of these predictions when we use these different combination of data sets. So the regional soil samples produced an LCCC of 0.42. So an LCCC is basically, 1 is a perfect fit, so the closer to the 1, the better. A regional was only 0.42, which wasn't great. We added in the neighbouring data to this data set and improved it to 0.51. And then we've added this on-farm soil samples with the neighbouring data and the regional samples. It's dramatically improved the results to 0.65, which is promising. So these are the maps that we created. So these are the maps of the depth to an ESP constraint. We picked an ESP constraint of 6%. It doesn't have to be 6%. It can be 10%, 15%, whatever you want. You can see that there's quite a bit of variability within the Namoi catchment. So the orangey red area is basically showing that we're hitting an ESP of 6% right in the topsoil in those areas. And then we see some areas where it's blue. Basically, it's showing that we're not hitting an ESP of 6% at all in the top metre of the soil profile. So focusing in on Lara, we can see there's quite a bit of variability across the farm and quite a bit of variability within individual fields. So some areas where we're hitting an ESP of 6 quite shallow in the soil profile, but then other areas where it's quite deep. But a question we always ask is, how does this depth to constraint map, or how do these digital soil maps actually relate to crop yield? So we had a little case study. We've got 2 fields here, C4 4 and 5 and L2, and we looked at the yield monitor data and basically overlaid it with these depth to ESP constraint maps that we've produced. So just here we've got canola, chickpea, wheat, and cotton. You can see on the x-axis that we've got the depth to an ESP constraint, and then we've got the yield on the y-axis. You can see when the depth to an ESP constraint is quite shallow in the soil profile, that the yield is lower, and as this ESP constraint is found deeper in the soil profile, that the yield actually increases, which makes sense. We see it for canola, a nice pattern. We see it for chickpea, very nice pattern. Same for wheat, but with cotton, we don't see that same relationship, and we know that the cotton's a bit more tolerant of sodicity than these other grain crops, which makes sense. I suppose in conclusion, we could see that adding in the grower collected data with neighbour data and regional soil data really improved the results. The output of a single map is quite concise, a single 3D map. It's easy to use and potentially valuable information for growers. We see a pretty good relationship between the produced map and yield maps. I think it's a promising guide to remediate soil constraints or tailor management inputs accordingly. And sort of one take home that I suppose is that the results from this example farm, Lara, are based on relatively little investment from a grower. So only 30 soil cores of 5 different depths. So not too expensive to collect this kind of information.